Hello everyone, welcome back to the Beginner's Guide to Solo in SMITE. This is now the Assassin in Solo lane. And last episode, I talked about how Guardians typically want to build a little bit of extra damage to make up for the fact that they have a little bit less late game damage. They usually don't have the scaling that Warriors have in the late game. So usually they want to build a little bit more damage in the late game. We had a nice discussion about that and a really nice example of that. Well, assassin solos are the opposite. In this particular case, you actually want to build a little bit more defense in order to stay alive a little bit longer, especially in the early game. There are a couple of things that you're going to want to think about when going into a solo lane matchup. It's probably going to be Bologna as my laning opponent. So now I'm going to need to consider a couple of very specific things. How am I going to approach this overall? Let me see. It really depends. The problem here is that Bologna could go with auto attacks or with ability damage. So she's pretty tough to figure out in terms of that. So it is going to be fairly difficult to decide specifically what I'm going to do about that. I might build... That's a good question. We'll go with Mannequin Scepter and probably sell it in the late game. I'm not necessarily going to want to keep that long term. And we're going to start with... We'll go with Round Shield here. I think would probably be my best bet. Go with some potions. I don't know why I don't have teleport here. Yeah, this should be a nice start. Assuming that Bologna is, of course, our actual laning opponent, it's a fairly safe bet. They have a standard-looking comp. They have one of each class, and probably the Warrior is going to wind up being the one in the solo lane. If she's making predictions as well, she's probably going to anticipate me as the jungler or Long as the solo, so this will be a really nice surprise there. Okay, that was nice and quick. Glorious Mannequin Scepter. We're going to start trying to wipe out the back line as quickly as possible, or the front line, I guess. That works too, I suppose. Okay, good. That was excellent. That was an excellent opening move. Go ahead and back off of that, because I don't want to press too hard there and take some free hits from her tower. That would be very bad. But I am going to want to hit an enemy minion first so I can stun her out of her hammer attack. That's going to be very important. So we're just going to kind of stall around here and wait for her to use it just like that. Okay, that was excellent. I needed to make sure that I got my stun up. Now, with Assassins, you have to counterplay very intelligently because, again, you can't really afford... Unlike with Guardians, who have the ability to make some mistakes because they're tankier at the beginning, Assassins are less tanky than a lot of their competition is, especially Guardians. So you really have to play for that counter-attacking right away. I should not have gone for that. That was a mistake. One that I barely survived for some reason. Oh, yeah, I missed that. That's exactly a case in point there. I missed the stun that I really needed to hit. Fortunately, I have teleport. I need to check if she does, because that's going to make quite a difference. Do you have teleport? Well, I need to get a ward at the very least. You do not. Okay, so that's actually really good news for me overall. Heal up all of her minions here. Brutalize. I'm not going to die for that because I'd probably die for it and I don't want to at this point. I'm just going to go ahead and calmly do that. We're just going to let our mana heal up quite naturally. We're going to clear this wave. She's going to lose a wave because she doesn't have teleport. It's hugely important for us. Alright. Clear this really quick while we have our health potion going. Okay, good. And while Erlong Shen is over here, we're going to clear the mana buff with him. Excellent. She's back in lane. That's fine. We need to play this pretty intelligently. He's going to go for the... No, he might go for the gank. I'm not sure yet. And now we win the lane. Honestly.
An enemy has been slain.
Now that I have my ult, that's it. That's the beauty of Fenrir and the reason why I prefer playing Fenrir in the solo lane over the support lane. I know a lot of Fenrir players like him in the support. I don't like his late game in the support role. This is just more of a personal thing. This has nothing to do with solo specifically. But the ability of just being able to get huge, chew up the enemy, and bring them under your tower is incredibly potent for the solo lane. Erlong did steal the kill, but that doesn't make a difference. She died and she doesn't have teleports. That's another, what, wave and a half, I think, that she's going to lose? It's going to be a pretty decent amount here. We're going to go ahead and use this. Make sure we heal back to the point we're losing. Alright, that's good. We're going to go back and do some of this farm in the back here. It respawns fast enough that I don't think Erlong is going to miss it. Okay, good. And we almost have her ult up. If she pushes past halfway, she's going to be in trouble. Let's see if she learned. Yeah, she's going to back off of that. Makes sense.
One less opponent that can stop us.
Your right tower is under attack.
Now, keep in mind that Anakin's Scepter in the first stage actually is really effective with Fenrir because he does get a little bit of extra power on that.
An enemy has been slain.
And we're going to bring you back to my wave.
Everyone to me!
Yep. She gets bonus protections and stuff with the flag, so I didn't really want to mess with that. Do you have a potion going on right now? You've got your chalice, so... Yeah, you don't have the mana to contest me right now. Oh, why are you here? Nope, I'm dead. Ah, I didn't. My wards fell off. Fair enough. Now, I was originally going to go for Shifter's Shield, but Berserker's Shield might be the stronger choice at this point in time. And then we're going to want to go for a bit more physical protections as well. What will I pick up? That is the question. My teleport's up, so I'm not too concerned about the fact that I died there. That's not going to be really a huge problem.
If only they accepted us, we could have saved them.
Oh, he was trying to defend my mana. Oh, a nice play, nice play. They're going to get him, so that's not really a huge concern.
One less opponent that can stop us.
Nope. You don't get out of here. I got it.
Skills are marvelous.
Your middle tower is under attack.
I appreciate the effort, though.
No problem.
Do I have access to her mana buff? I do. All right, nice.
On my way.
Enemy
No, I'm fine.
cancel that.
He can't really kill me, honestly. Oh, he timed that well. That was a good play. He played that smart.
Enemy missing middle.
Only 101.
I am in so much trouble right now.
101.
But I have hell here, so I'm gonna fight this.
Left to go.
Just try to survive this as much as possible. Nice play, nice play. Does she? Yeah, she gets
An
it.
enemy has
We
been
need to get out of here.
slain.
We're not gonna be able to survive. Oh, maybe we will. We gotta get out of here.
One less opponent.
We make
that
it. Oh,
can
she's gonna
stop
chase
us.
me because she's mad. She should be chasing the hell.
They sacrificed their whole self for us.
I'm gonna make you pay for that.
Remember them. Exceptional.
I mean, if I wasn't gonna be able to kill, if I wasn't gonna be able to save hell, I was gonna at least avenge her. The Bologna was way too mad for that. You really shouldn't let your emotions get the better of you in solo lane. With Guardians, having a lot of feels is a good thing. Really being able to form that emotional connection with your allies is very important. But with solos, you really don't want to be too emotional because that can happen. And this is something I didn't mention initially because I was going to kind of talk about that in the advance, but that was such a classic example that I really wanted to talk about it now. It was just absolutely a terrible, terrible idea for her to be going that deep for Hell, who is clearly our support. It was just a terrible decision in general. She lost so much experience. I'm 2 levels ahead of her now because of that. And that was purely rage. She was mad. That's what it comes down to. She wanted to kill. She was mad. She's not been doing as well as she thinks she should be. So she did that. And then you died because my minions will kill you. Or not, apparently. Yeah, you can't fight me anymore. I'm surprised my minions didn't kill you, honestly. I was really expecting them to, but I guess that's just a miscalculation on my part. And then you're dead. I don't know why you came back up. It also just occurs to me that I accidentally increased my leap at one point there. Which you only really need for the stun, really.
One less opponent that can stop us.
I'm gonna go see if her mana's up again. It's a risk. But I don't think anyone's over here. I should be able to grab this really quick, especially if I use my howl here.
Exceptional.
Yeah. And then I'm gonna want to get out of here. I might take this wave really quick. The Bologna is clearly no longer interested in fighting me, so wiping out the minion wave and having my minions take the tower is actually going to be a good decision at this point. Very good. Go ahead and grab this buff here. Oh, she actually arrived in time to save her tower. I'm impressed. Alright, now we're going to go back, because I only have the one item she's going to have. Yeah, she's already starting on her next one. Yeah, I think Breastplate of Valor is probably my best bet at this particular juncture. Now I'm going to want to start thinking about my magic protections, which I'm leaning towards going for a nice Shogun's Kusari or Talisman of Energy. I'm not sure. I might go Talisman of Energy first. I think that would be better for me in the... Hi, how you doing? I'll just save my dude here. Clear this one last wave.
Your right tower is under attack.
She's not going to be in time to save this. No way. She doesn't have teleport. I'm going to go slap mid. Oh, when bots came over to save it. Okay. Fair enough.
Detection drone deployed.
Are you staying in this lane? No, you're going to count on the fact that she's going to arrive in time to save this. Okay. I'll stick around and do the Scorpion to see if she shows up in time. This should be interesting to watch.
They sacrificed their whole self for us. Remember them.
No. Okay. We'll clear another wave. We might actually fight her. We're 4 levels higher than her at this point.
Double kill. They lack the will to see this through.
Alright.
Your middle tower is under attack.
You just now got that? Okay.
Tower has been destroyed.
I'm gonna go gank Kukan. Wherever he went.
One less opponent.
I don't
that
see
can
where he
stop
is.
us. An enemy has been slain.
I'll stay in mid for now. I don't know where Kukulkan went. I want to push this up. And I don't want to wander too far away from my tower. She's going to push that really hard right now. Alright, now I'm going to go back to my lane. She's going to be pushing that.
No problem.
Your left tower is under attack.
She's at the totem.
Attack on my way.
Yep. I goofed that really bad. Supposed to hit that though. Nope. I'm not diving that. That's exactly what she wants. There we go. Clear this wave.
Enemy missing left.
This wave.
Such potential wasted.
Okay. What the heck are y'all doing over here? I might die for this, but that's fine.
We can repair you.
It was worth it just to take the tower. And they took 2 for that. I just wandered in there. I really shouldn't have done that in all honesty, but that was just too good to resist. Alright, I do want magic protections. We'll go for Talisman of Energy. I think that's my best option at this particular point in time. What will I want next? Let me see. I might go Shogun's Kusari as my next item. Actually, let's go ahead and go Shogun's Kusari now. For the cooldowns at the very least. Grab some wards. Teleport to... Yeah, they're going to be on the Gold Fury. They don't need me over there for that. Or they shouldn't, anyways. Or the enemy can surrender. Again. My goodness. Every time. Well, really, I'm gonna have a rough time getting the solo lane that I want. It's a very popular role right now. So I'll go on ahead and talk about this. So I wasn't able to really exemplify the late game, but I think you get the general idea of where I was going to go. Notice that I have this delicious little hybrid item here. This technically is hybrid. Then we go into Berserker's Shield. Now, most of the time, you would, with, say, a Guardian, you would want to go with something a bit more damaging, or hybrid. Hybrid is usually a pretty safe thing. Now, also keep in mind that I was able to correctly guess that Bologna was going to be in my lane. Like I said at the start of the match, it was a pretty safe guess. Sometimes you can't tell. If you can't tell, it's worth building something more damaging early game, or something more broadly defensive. If I wasn't 100% sure, a really good start would have been trying to go into Soul Eater. Fenrir is very good with Soul Eater. I was eventually going to likely build Soul Eater later on in the game. Soul Eater is a very fast stack because you don't have to get kills, you can get assists or kills to get Soul Eater's stacks up. So Soul Eater is actually one of the few stacking items I'm comfortable building late game, but that was going to be my only pure damage item throughout this whole match, was just going to be Soul Eater. Right? Ooh, what the heck was that? Right? So that was going to be my only damage item. After Shogun's Kusari, I was probably going to go into, like I said, I was going to go into, Brain Cramp? Talisman of Energy. Soul Eater. I probably would have sold this and gone into some other hybrid item. Probably another hybrid defense item. Shifter's Shield probably would have been my choice. Or possibly Glad Shield. One of the two. Definitely a shield. Again, I'm swapping out a full damage item for a hybrid item, a little bit more defense, some decent damage on there. Shifter's Shield probably would have been what I finished off with, because Mannequin Scepter, like I've been saying this whole time, is pretty weak late game, and the evolutions of this are my least favorite evolutions of all the starter items. I really don't like them. So I would have sold this for Shifter's Shield, That would have been my build. I would have been really nicely tanky. I would have been able to do some decent damage, especially between Berserker's Shield's 10% pen and the Soul Eater's 10% pen, and the Life Steal would have helped keep me alive, and I would have been just in a really strong position, right? Notice I was 4 levels ahead of the Bologna. Now, the Bologna's opening wasn't too bad. Um, she had Death Toll, which is actually really nice on Bologna. And she went to Stone Cutting Sword, which is normally pretty nice. The problem here is that I had Berserker Shield as my first item, so her flat protection reduction is would have wound up being 21. I had 35, so I was going to get pretty good bonuses there anyways. She was increasing hers by 15, which actually would have mattered because 10% pen doesn't really do a whole lot with that, but every time she got me low enough, I went Berserker and got extra power and attack speed, so I was just basically punching right through. Especially considering the extra damage I had as an assassin, which is something that I think she wasn't prepared for. If you're... See, the thing is, you also have to somewhat keep in mind what class the enemy solo is as well. Now, this really worked out well for me because she built as if I was a warrior, which I wasn't. See, assassins have really good flat damage just like warriors do, but they have better scaling, and I was going into a decent amount of physical power at that time. By the time I was done with Berserker's Shield, I had 50 power. She only had 15 more than I did, right? But my flat damage and my scaling combined were going to be higher than her flat damage and scaling combined. So I was just slapping harder, and she probably should have started with Berserker's Shield herself that offers her more physical protections, 20 more even when you consider the full stack of stone cutting, the full 35 more if she didn't have any stacks of stone cutting at that time. So she was building for a warrior when she was facing an assassin. She should have started with more protections, and that's something that I want you to keep in mind. If you are playing against a assassin solo lane, you need a little bit more protections in the early game. You have to respect their early damage. If you're playing against a guardian, you're going to want to build a little more penetration later in the game, right? The early game, you don't really need to adjust for a guardian too much, obviously, other than using magic protections. That's fairly obvious, that goes without saying. But in the late game, you want to build a little bit more damage as a warrior support. A warrior solo, right? Now, if I had been against a guardian solo, if I had been against, say, Ymir, I would have been perfectly fine going with Anseli as a really early item. I wouldn't have needed too much protections because it is a guardian, and I would have needed the power to help punch through him. And then maybe I would have built some more serious magic protections in the form of, say, Genji's Guard or Pestilence or what have you, and then kind of roll from there. I briefly flirted with the idea of playing an Animosity Fenrir, which might have done me more good in the long run, but in the short term, that was exactly what I needed for Bologna. It worked out really well. But, you know, it does come down to essentially a combination of how you want to play, what you're playing as, and what your enemy is. So you really have to keep in mind those various factors. Guardians require more late game penetration and damage. Enemy assassins require more early game protections, so you're going to want to build your full defense items earlier, etc. Right? That's really what it comes down to, and that's what I really want to, you know, give you as a takeaway. I will eventually, throughout this series, be talking about Hunter and Mage solo lanes, but I'm going to save those for last because I don't recommend playing these, at least for new players. I don't recommend playing either of those classes in solo. If only I could speak. The three great classes for the solo lane are Warrior, Guardian, and Assassin, and you only have to tweak yourself a little bit. Like I said, I recommend, while a Guardian is a safer play for beginner players, I think it will probably skew you in a bit more of an aggressive direction that might not be healthy. Again, it really depends on what you choose. I'm not going to absolutely tell you, oh, you absolutely must play a warrior when you're starting out in solo, because maybe you don't want to, and I totally respect that. But keep in mind that warriors are kind of the balance between damage and defense in the solo lane. Guardians are sacrificing late game damage for early game protections, and assassins are completely the, I won't say completely the opposite. actually they kind of are. They're sacrificing early game protections for late game damage. So if you're an assassin solo lane against a Guardian solo lane, you really don't need to change much in how you would normally build. In all honesty, you can actually use a pretty standard build of 2 hybrid, 2 offense, and 2 protections, because you're going to have your nice scaling in the late game that will help naturally punch through a Guardian's protections. But if you're against a Warrior, you're going to want to build your protections a little bit earlier, again, because the Warrior is going to have the better protections as well. So just keep that in mind, and really just be aware of your laning opponent, and specifically their class. As you play and become more experienced, you'll better understand the matchups, which are very important for solo lane, and not something I'm going to talk about because beginners aren't really going to care too much about matchups. If you're a beginner, you don't have the gameplay experience to really be able to sit down and know how a matchup is going to go. That's something that comes with time, and by the time you understand the matchups, you're not going to be a beginner anymore. So that's the only subject of solo lane I'm going to not discuss in this series, because as a beginner, you're really not going to interact with that much. You're going to be focusing on your own gameplay, you're going to be focusing on your own builds, you're going to be focusing on your own play style, and adapting to the enemy as you need to. So I'm really not necessarily going to talk about matchups. But with that being said, thank you all very much for joining me. If you found this useful, please like and subscribe. If you didn't, please ignore me. And as always, if you have any comments, questions, concerns, ideas, suggestions, or requests, please leave them down in the comment section below. Also, I want to put on an addendum here just really quick. You're getting 2 episodes today specifically because yesterday I could not get a stable enough solo lane game to actually upload. I was only able to play 4 matches yesterday, only 2 of which I got the solo lane. And the first one, the enemy solo lane just connected way too late. It was such an obvious advantage that I had because they missed the whole first wave. It was atrocious. There was no way that was a good example of solo gameplay because I basically steamrolled the poor individual. Second game, lag was horrifically ugly. It was just terrible and just absolutely the worst match. We won because the enemy team surrendered. I think one of their team disconnected about halfway through, which is probably the source of the lag, or one of the sources of the lag, but it was absolutely atrocious. So I didn't upload that either. The lag was too horrific. So I actually got 2 good solo games here that really exemplify what I was talking about. Both were early surrenders, unfortunately, but I still feel like I was able to get the point across for what I was trying to talk about, which would be Guardians in the solo lane and Assassins in the solo lane. So with that being said, from here on out, I will be talking about Warriors, specifically in the context of other game modes, Clash, Joust, etc. And also in Assault. So I'll be talking about Warriors in those contexts. And what really because obviously in Conquest, your role is to replace the Assassin or the Guardian when they fall in battle, late game. And of course farm in the early game, but how does that change in other modes? And I'll talk about that in each of the respective modes. So, you've got that to look forward to, but yeah, thank you very much for joining me. Have a great 24 hours.